What if I told you that one woman's courage in the face of genocide saved an entire nation? And what if I told you that story holds a key to understanding your midlife calling? After 20 years in military leadership, I thought I understood courage. But when I discovered the Esther effect, everything changed. Esther chose to lay down her life. Even though I was in the military, I can say at times I wasn't always willing to lay down my life. Let me bring you up to the story. Some of us know her story, but it started at a party where the king Xerius was having a party and he was drunk and he wanted Queen Vasti to parade before him and his buddies. Queen Vasti said, "No, I'm not doing it." Now, we can talk later about her confidence and who she was and how she valued herself. Because some people think Queen Vasti was just being disobedient. But nevertheless, because she did not do what her husband asked her to do, he exiled her. He got rid of her. He threw her out of the kingdom and he put out a decree, go find me another wife. Now, Mordecai heard that the king was asking to bring a lot of women in and have them parade with him and let him choose. So he told Esther, "You're going to be a part of this competition." And she was the one chosen. The midwives and the concubines and all of the handmaidens started preparing Esther for 12 months. She was in preparation, getting ready to meet the king. During that time, Esther wasn't just being prepared, she was kept and hidden, learning about Persian culture. She was learning about the culture of the palace. She was understanding her purpose as a woman. Esther was sent by her cousin Mordecai, but he said, "Don't tell them who you are." So here it is, a person who's an orphan, lost her mother and father, and young, and now she's being sent to a kingdom told to be silent. When you're not allowed to speak, God has you hidden. Although you're in a place where you're being prepared for what it is God's telling you to do, you're still not in a place where your voice is being heard. She was in total compliance to the process. Haman went to the king to ask for a decree to kill all of the Jews. And Mordecai got wind of that and he sent wind to Esther and said, "Look, they're about to kill us, Esther." And he said, "You need to go to the king and tell him." She said, "I haven't been summoned in 30 days and you can't go before the king unless asked." He said, "Forget those rules. You might have been called for such a time as this. If he puts a decree to kill all the Jews, you're one of them. Do you think you're going to escape this?" She recognized, okay, my moment is here. I need to go before the king. She called a fast 3 days and she said, "If I perish, let me perish. I'm going to see the king." Now, when she had the opportunity, she didn't just rush in and tell the king. She had two beautiful banquets, each time warming the king up to her heart. So she was walking in great wisdom. She understood her timing. She understood that her position of influence, and she took advantage of the fact that she was his wife. And so she did what she had to do. Then we also find out later that when she exposed Haman, Haman was killed, Mordecai was put in authority, and the king preserved all the Jews of the city. So she was able to use her influence, even though her time of preparation, she didn't have a lot of influence from the king. She was being trained by women and midwives, but she stayed in compliance until her moment came. So I want to encourage you that there's a time when your moment will come. Even though you might be in hiding, even though your voice is not being heard, even though there's times you have to hide, you're called by God. And sometimes people don't see it. Sometimes you're feeling overlooked, but you know there's an anointing and a call on your life. So we have to talk about what the Esther effect is, because when we understand that the Esther effect is when God positions women, the preparation season, it's often filled with loss, with waiting and uncertainty when your voice is needed. So we got to understand that there's a season for all things. Now, we're going to talk first about the hidden season because sometimes we don't know God is hiding us. We think it's something we're not doing, that we're missing the moments, and you have to realize Is God hiding me or am I hiding myself? We have to distinguish, because if God is hiding us, there is a time and a season for your open door. But if you're hiding yourself, that might mean you need some healing or breakthrough to get you out of that stage of fear or fear of rejection. So, what happens in the hidden season? First, there's a preparation season. Esther spent 12 months in transformation before meeting the king. That wasn't about external beauty, it was about internal development. God was teaching her palace protocols, Persian culture, and developing wisdom and discernment. She was learning as she was waiting. And that's most important. If you feel God is hiding you, He's not hiding you and you're just on some vacation watching television. You're spending time in His presence, you're studying His word, and you may start having a hunger. There's something being birthed in you for more of His presence, more of His intimacy, and you're not really wanting to hear other people's conversations. You're seeking God for yourself. And I'm not telling you to be in isolation or be in rebellion or be defiant, but you're starting to tune your ear to the voice of God. When God has us in a hidden place, He will cause us not to desire outside influence. He will want us totally involved with His voice, His presence, and getting to know who He is. So that's the preparation season. And that may seem familiar to you because in your midlife season, it will come with challenges. You're going to face some losses during that time of waiting and preparation. You're going to be in some transitions, and you're going to understand that all of that is not wasted time. Well, you may think all the reinventing and starting over again and starting a new title, a new brand, a new this, a new that, and you're like, I'm just in cycles. But none of that is wasted because God is teaching you to know you and Him. God knows you. But He needs you to know Him, how He uses you, and how He's pouring into you. You may have processed things that you didn't think you needed to, but it was a stage of reinventing yourself. And that's when God is cultivating the wisdom and the resilience and the authentic presence, right? The second thing is the hidden identity. Esther concealed her Jewish heritage. Sometimes God develops our gifts and callings in hidden seasons before public revelation. This is that birthing stage. Even when I'm teaching the birthing of prophets, there's a hidden stage. You know you're pregnant, but nobody else can see it, right? That first trimester, sometimes second, people may not see it. There's no signs you're pregnant, but you know. And that can be frustrating. You know what's in you, but other people aren't recognizing it. So if you felt invisible or overlooked in your midlife, now midlife is where God is bringing you into transition. Sometimes God will develop your gifts and callings in those hidden seasons. And we've got to understand that because it's during those times when we feel overlooked and we feel invisible that God might be protecting and preparing us for greater influence. When God is raising up His prophets, He will cause them to live in the wilderness. He will cause them to live in a hidden place where they are only learning His voice. They're learning His word. They're learning how He wakes them up in the midnight hours and how He gives dreams and visions, not out of rebellion like Esther, staying in compliance, following the rules, but you know God is pulling you away from a lot of the outside influences, a lot of the fellowships, a lot of the conferences that you no longer have an interest of going to because God is pulling you away. The third thing is when you have a defining moment. Esther faced the choice to stay silent or speak up and risk everything. There's going to come a moment in your life where you're going to have the Esther moment, where you're going to have to begin to start speaking up. It's going to be like Jeremiah. It's just like fire shut up in your bones. You can't sit silent anymore. You have gained wisdom and knowledge and understanding, and you're hearing people say stuff, and you're like, that's not right. I need to correct that or teach that or show that because something in you is bubbling up. The birthing is maturing in you, and now God is getting ready to expose what He's already put in you. Maybe this is the time where God is starting to get you to speak up. Your voice in your family, in your workplace, in your community, or your calling, right? Then He's going to give you in your hidden season a strategic approach. Esther didn't burst in the throne. And many of us who are probably moving too soon or immaturely, we will burst on in and think we have voice when we haven't been given the platform to speak. We'll sometimes go into organizations or ministries and we try to tell them everything that's wrong, and that might not be the right approach. Esther walked with wisdom. Even though the king gave her access, she didn't burst in and say everything. She had two banquets with him to get him to warm up to her heart and to warm up to the desires. She understood timing and strategy. So even in your hidden season, when doors open, there's still timing and strategy. That sometimes if you move too soon, that door will shut real quick and you're like, man, I was making treadway. Now I'm like, the doors have been closed. Sometimes it's because we approached it wrong. And God is like, no, that's not the way. He'll shut that door because he doesn't want you to mess up the whole plan. So it is crucial for midlife women. Your voice matters. It does have to be the right approach. You don't have to hustle or force doors open. Sometimes when we get impatient, when we get desperate, or we feel like it's just been too long, we will try to take on opportunities that might not be for us. Then you have the ripple effect because Esther walked in courage. She not only became a voice in the city, but she saved her whole nation. She saved her bloodline. Haman was killed, Mordecai was put in a position of authority, and the people were restored. How do you realize you're in your Esther moment? Because first we got to recognize we're hidden. God has us in preparation mode. Then we have to recognize when it's time to come out. Three practical indicators might help. One, you will feel unqualified but called. Esther felt like she didn't have a position of authority. She was an orphan, an exile, a minority. On paper, she was the least qualified, but she had a position of influence. So we got to know that God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And if you're in your midlife feeling like you missed your window, or you're too old or too inexperienced or too whatever, that's a sign that you're positioned for an Esther moment. God specializes in using the unlikely. We know he says he takes the foolish things of this world and confound the wise, right? The second indicator that you're coming into your Esther moment is you're facing a for such a time as this situation. You start feeling people pulling on you in a certain area. God starts anointing you with a greater understanding in certain things. Maybe you didn't dream, but now you're dreaming more. You didn't even interpret dreams. Now God has given you wisdom on how to interpret. You didn't want to teach in the prophetic, but now you have understanding. Being around people who need that knowledge that's in you. That's that Esther moment that's starting to flare up. Now, because you may think you're not qualified, you may start shrinking because you're afraid of exposure, you're afraid of the responsibility or whatever. And like I said, we can stay in the cave so long that we can get comfortable just being in the presence of God. But when God says it's time to fly the coop, it's time to get out of this nest and flap your wings, sometimes we're like, no, no, no. But God will force us out of that place of comfort when it's time. It may be in your family where your relationship that needs healing, pattern needs to be broken and you're seeing it. It might be in your workplace where injustice needs addressing, or leadership that needs wisdom, and God is somehow giving you that and you're running from it because you're not wanting to use that gift, or you're thinking you're still not qualified to use that gift. Pay attention to what breaks your heart and won't let you go. Those could be moments where God is positioning you for impact. The last indicator is experiencing the tension between safety and significance. You're at a point where you're like, it's do or die. I got to make a decision here. I've got to move into what it is God's calling me to. You're likely in your Esther moment when you feel the tension between playing it safe and stepping into something bigger. What do you do when God's yes is bigger than your no? This is what I learned in 20 years of military leadership. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is feeling the fear and moving forward, because the cause is bigger than your comfort. So, what's next? First, identify your preparation season. Look back in your midlife journey and what you've learned. Look at the pivotal moments that impacted you, caused you to grow, seek God, and figure out why you thought a certain way and why this hurt so deeply. Struggling in your recovery, those pivotal moments where God may have you in your hidden season. Hidden season is not just hiding, it's preparation. He's teaching you how to use your gift. He's teaching you how to learn his voice. He's teaching you how to use your sphere of influence. Step two is seek counsel and prayer. Esther fasted for 3 days and gathered her community. Don't do this alone. When you feel God is pulling you, go to your leader and say, I feel God pulling me away. I'm going to be in prayer. I'm going to be fasting. I'm going in isolation to really hear God. I may not be around as much, but I will be as active as I can. God is pulling me in an area to understand what he's doing in my life. Take the first brave step. You don't have to have the whole plan figured out. And this is sometimes what we'll do with God when God is getting ready to pull us into exposure. We will start coming up with excuses. God, I need more understanding, more teaching, more schooling, a mentor. And all of this time God had you in preparation, he was pouring into you everything you need. God knows your readiness. He's not pulling you out prematurely. He knows he has put enough in you for what he's called you to do. The fourth thing is trust divine timing. Esther hosted 2 banquets before making her request. She waited for the right moment. Don't rush. We can be in this waiting stage, but when opportunities come, we're like, jump on it. Sometimes we're feeling like, I don't want to miss the moment. I don't want to let fear hold me back. And that's where we have to distinguish between the two. Trust that if God has positioned you for this moment, it's giving you the wisdom to know when and how to act. Sometimes err on the side of caution. If this is for me, it'll come to pass. If not, it'll come to naught. And you just wait and say, God, give me peace. If I don't make a decision today and I lose out, then maybe it was God or maybe it wasn't God. So this is why the preparation time, you're learning God's voice, you're learning God's timing, you're learning his movements so that when that moment comes to step out like Esther did, you know when it's God and when it's not. The Esther effect isn't about being perfect, it's about being present, showing up authentically in your season with the wisdom you've gained and the courage God provides. So remember, it wasn't wasted. You gained wisdom, knowledge, understanding. This is the importance of knowing that God is calling you to do what he's called you to do. Esther's story reminds us midlife isn't the end of your influence. It's often the beginning of your greatest impact. Preparation is the time of wilderness being hidden. So if you're hidden, what are you learning? Hidden is not just doing nothing. You're in preparation, writing books, doing studies, doing whatever God is telling you. Hidden place could be building up your prayer life, studying to show yourself approved. It could be you serving in areas that you've never been. It could be you joining organizations where you learn. It may not be that you have a platform, but you're preparing, and that is learning and transformation. It's the positioning that you've gained for positioning. What is your Esther moment? What situation is calling your voice, your wisdom, your courage? Think about that and drop a comment below. Your story might be exactly what someone needs to hear. Has your Esther moment come, or are you still in preparation? The hidden stage, are you being hidden by God or hiding yourself? Sometimes we're overdue. Right? Remember, we don't have to be perfect. In him, we're perfect. He's the perfect one working in us. He's not looking for us to be perfect. He's just looking for us to trusting him and the presence of God that's in us. If you're ready to embrace your midlife calling without overwhelm, subscribe to this channel. Every week I'll share biblical wisdom for the faith-based woman to help them grow. Don't keep playing small. Step into your authentic presence with integrity. You weren't given your experiences, wisdom, and voice by accident. You have come to your position for such a time as this. Now, go and be the Esther the world needs.